What is going on, everybody? Welcome back, SharkNation. This is number 71. Jason and I here today have a very, very special guest, Nikki Pais. You say Pais, or I didn't ask you
Yep,
beforehand.
that's perfect.
Oh, good, good. Everybody screws up my name, so.
I'm not gonna attempt it.
Mine's a butcher block too. You don't want to go there.
I like it. Cool. So Nikki, we were really excited to have you on because I mean, our team has gained a ton of knowledge and value from your guidance, from your experience and time as an ISA and now a Cheplack conversion coach. So, we're pumped. And I guess, to set the stage for the listeners, give us a little background on, what got you into this position in real estate.
Well, to be fair, this is not where I started. When I was a kid, I actually swore this was the only thing I would never do. I said, definitely not real estate. I don't get the home thing. And whenever I started, I was an assistant to a broker. And I genuinely, I'm embarrassed to admit, but I didn't know what a mortgage meant. I didn't know any of the terminology. And the broker who interviewed me said, I'm going to try to scare you. And through all of this verbiage, and I would take the words and I would literally make a list and I'd go home and I'd Google them and I'd watch YouTube videos explaining them. And eventually I knew what I was talking about. But it started as an assistant. After that, I got a request to get extra things on my list. And I was like, oh no, I can't do all of these things. I'm working a lot. I asked for $1 raise and the answer was no. And after that $1 raise, I called 10 different places and I said, these are my skills. I do the transactions for this individual. I'm doing his social media. I do his lead generation and I manage his inbox, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think any of those things would be beneficial to your team? And 3 of them offered interviews. All 3 offered a job. And that's how I got into full-time lead conversion only. And from there, it has just progressed and progressed. And now I'm here.
Wow. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. So, okay. How long ago was that you started as the, assistant there?
Right after COVID. Yeah. So like 2019, 2020.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say the one thing that you promised that you weren't going to do is be on our show. I'm like, ooh, easy.
No, I'm happy to be here. I love spending time with them.
That's good. I'm excited. Okay. So what, so let's go there though. When you transition from, the assistant role, you just learned all that stuff and you go into lead conversion. What was different about lead conversion from maybe more of just the role you were in before, the assistant style?
So previously it was lead generation, but wherever he needed me, he'd get a new leads information and I'd call, or he'd ask to double check certain things. And I was taking more of the assistant role in that the entire time I might be a part of the transaction. And once I got into lead conversion, I realized that for many agents, the area that they don't want to communicate is that initial intro. When it's an online lead, you don't have any relationship or rapport built. And that's where all of us struggle. And I was no different. When I first started, I was so nervous on the phone and my CEO would tease me all the time. I sounded absolutely dreadful, but I put in more time than anybody else. At the time I was in a Brivity CRM, which now I use Follow Up Boss, and it's been night and day for me. But at the time it tracks every call that you make. And I remember I was trained by this lady named Jean, and Jean poured into me so much. And the amount of calls that I had done compared to anybody else just in that first year alone was 4 times the amount of calls of anybody else. It was like cramming in years and years worth of experience, but I was there first one, last one out. And I was working on weekends because commission is directly tied for inside sales as to how many you can close. And I had nothing else that could have been better than me making money. So that's how it started.
It's
awesome.
Crazy too. Like you say, from going from somebody that wouldn't give you $1, like that's kind of how I got into real estate, was like you get capped on your earning. And then you see that you have an unlimited income potential when the harder you work, the more you're going to make. It's like, that's a no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm. That's so funny that you say that, because even now talking with agents, the disconnect is always, why wouldn't you want to get on the phone? If you break it down commission wise, $400,000 home, And if you say, let's just say somebody had a 50-50 split at 26 touches, which is the average amount on your commission split, that's like $300 a call. I am always willing, coincidentally, to call for that amount. That's crazy. It's like, what could keep me off the phones? But we don't look at it that way. We look at it as when that big check comes. But for us, it's every little step that gets you there.
Mm. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I think right when you think about the call, they're not thinking about the money. They're thinking about somebody's gonna be mean to me, you
Yes.
know. So what was that your fear when you started? Were you scared of the people, being rude to you? Like, why are you calling me? Was that a big fear?
My dad used to say, Nikki, the worst thing that anybody could ever do is tell you no. And so I will say I had that in my favor. My dad actually used to like do things intentionally to put me in embarrassing situations. So like he would say, Nikki, I'll give you $5 if you start singing, and we'd be in a public place. And I'd be like, okay, because I was going to get $5 at the end. Right. And so I do think over time, my maybe resilience was built up, but even now I tell agents if they absolutely hate the call, they can hang up at any time. But the top agents always are the ones who do the most amount of touches per lead. So while some of us are afraid to make the call, the person making the most amount of money is the person who thinks, what happens if I don't talk to them? So I would say fear is healthy. It's just how you use it. Does it prevent you from
Mm,
doing something, or does it encourage you to keep going?
I
Shoot.
love that.
Your dad is a guy after my own heart. I just did that to my daughter at Dunkin'. So
Yeah.
we went in there and she finished whatever she was having. She's like, "Can I get another one?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go ask the girl. Say, hey, today's Monday. It's free refill or whatever it was. Say
Mhm.
it's this free refill Monday." And if you just go up to her and ask her that, then I'll buy you another one or whatever. And she went up and she was a nervous wreck. And she went up to the girl and asked her if it was free refill Monday. And the girl looked at her like she had like 10 heads. And I'm like, me and her are both like dying laughing. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I noticed we've made a point to have our girls. I have two daughters, 7 and 10, and we make them order their food at the restaurant. It's a simple thing, but more now that I'm sitting here talking to you about this, the first couple of times you couldn't hear what they were saying. It was mumbling, scared to death. And just
Okay,
the other
mom.
day we did it, and we have been doing it consistently for a while. And I mean, those things, but it's funny how you can just see it and forget the basic principles of just learning through action. But no, that's really, really good. So Okay, so let's go through. I guess let's go there. So you're making a call. Um, what's I think you have a really really good opener. So I want to bring that out on here. So give me your opener that you use when you're making a call.
Sure. It's the same every single time. And if Jason is my lead, I say, hey, Jason, this is Nikki out in Myrtle Beach. How are you? And Jason says anything. He says positive or negative. If he says negative, I immediately stop and I say, oh my gosh, what's going on? He says, things could be better. I say, what's happening? Because I learned, especially here in the Myrtle Beach market, not everybody is moving for happy reasons. And if I go in chipper without that split second to do a temperature check, I can lose the entire lead. And a lot of agents say, Nikki, I've been taught we don't say, how are you? Because people don't care. Well, if they don't care, they'll just quickly respond. That's like the grocery store, right? You go through and somebody asks, how are you? You just feel obligated to reply. So it works rather than a long intro without somebody interjecting. After we're past the how are you, good or bad, the second thing I say is, excellent. I am the one who's been sending you listings. I'm double checking to see, are you still looking? And it is that way every single time. We make a mistake because we tell people what they do. You requested a home value, you signed up, and that's a longer objection handler. All they have to do is say, no, I didn't. And now we're the creep who's like, you did because I can see it. And I
You
swear.
registered on Tuesday at 3 o'clock. I know what you're doing, man. I saw you on the internet.
Yeah. And I made that mistake before. I was like, no, I can tell that you looked 5 times. Okay. What a creep. What a stranger danger alert, right? And that person was like, what do you mean you can see? And it only takes a couple of stings to realize, okay, that's not working. And instead, when I switched it, people started responding with familiarity, even that I hadn't sent them listings. People would say, oh, okay. because they're getting listings from somebody, and often they're getting them from our team anyways, right? So many automations are set up, so it's just a safer starting place without any triggers of like sales words. I'm not saying, are you buying, are you selling, are you looking to purchase? And that also is like stranger danger alert to say, this is a cold call.
Yeah, no, you blew my mind with that that mentality when we first got introduced to you, and it is amazing how many people that even actually aren't being sent listings do just assume that you are the one. Not that that's always the case, and a lot of times, like you said, we are, but even when you aren't, it's amazing how many think that you are the one, because people look at real estate. They're looking at real estate. I do, right? Like not just because I'm a real estate agent. I look for fun. Like we all look at it. HGTV is a whole channel based on that. So, um, so okay. So, um, one other thing I found interesting in listening to a lot of your dialogue is, so I'm real big on not having friction, and not having the sales words. Because I always remember when I got in the business, I had a lot of luck with internet leads, and I listened to another agent who was like, how do you have luck with these internet leads?" And their first words out of their mouth on the call was, "Hi, this is such and such with X Real Estate. Are you pre-approved?" It was like right to it, and the word pre-approval, and like, ugh. But my point that I want to make is, like, you have a unique ability to, I think, have firmness when you need it, but still have, like, the non-friction and smoothness. So what's an important indicator of, like, when to be firm on a call and move it in a certain direction or kick it back in the right direction, and when to let it flow? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. My answer, hopefully for most people, is simpler than what you think, but I am very attentive when I listen. And so when somebody's tone starts to firm up, what I recognize inside of me is that I feel this kind of fear bubble up, or I feel a sort of anger bubble up. And so that tells me that something the person just did is changing my mood. The moment that I feel any level of resistance, I just can't match. So that tells me, it's about to come up. So I get either intentionally softer and make sure that while this person is getting irritated about talking about something, that I come down, because most people will energy match. Or if somebody is being rude again and again, then I know it's okay for me to be firm but not rude. So there's only two potential outcomes. I'm always going to start with a gentler version and say, "Oh, completely understand." And we're going to try to de-escalate those techniques. Even people that are in emergency services use, right? But at a certain point, if somebody is like quote unquote non-compliant, then the only alternative left is to say, "Then I will match your energy. I attempted to bring you to mine, and if that didn't work, then I'm going to stay with you. But you would never catch me in a place of arguing or in a place of being rude." There's a difference, I think, where people think assertive means aggressive, and it doesn't. Those are two totally different things.
I
Yeah.
love that. That
Like you
was
said,
really, really
you
good.
don't want to like start the conversation off with conflict. It does nobody any good.
Mhm.
But all that stuff is awesome. I want to circle back though, and I don't want to miss this point. You mentioned that you repeat that opener over and over again, which is great. I think a lot of times agents go in and they don't have a game plan. Could you talk about before you even get on the phone, like what kind of preparation are you making before you call, or is it straight into the opener and straight down the line of your talk track?
Sure. So the reason that I keep the same opener, and I would encourage everyone to do this, is for the same reason we talk about that temperature side of things. I will experience a level of chaos if my intro is not prepared, which means that even if the lead was a for sale by owner, or even if the lead was a seller, it does not change my intro, because it is safe to assume that I have always been sending listings to this information. To this individual, right? So knowing that gives me a certain level of confidence to say I don't have to restart and reinvent the wheel. I'm always going to stay in that place. Now, I have what I have prepared because to me, the source is a secret. If I know they're a seller, that means I know what my seller script's going to be, regardless of what the intro is. If I know that they are a buyer, if I know that they are a FSBO, once that information is revealed to me, that's what I have planned. But that would never change what my introduction is. I always encourage with traditional home buyers that we start in criteria, because those are non-threatening questions. These are softballs that they've They've already answered on a website, so it doesn't cause any type of disagreement or chaos inside. After that, we move into motivation. Now there's just enough rapport built. Questions, whenever I ask, get answered, and we're safe. Now we're in the home stretch. Now I can talk about timeline. It's going to be more flexible since you said your whole vision and why you wanted it. And then after timeline, we go for appointment. That is the way, but that is the baseline, which means if your lead starts on motivation, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop in motivation and say, sorry, my script says we're supposed to talk about criteria. I'm going to have that full conversation because that's what they wanted. And then I know what my baseline is. I know what I still need to cover. But that's where most of us have a disconnect. We're trying to figure out what are the boundaries of what I'm allowed to say versus like, how does that fit into my script? Script is your main home base. But of course, there's little extras that we throw in.
So you come on and, I'm the one sending you the listings, and we get the all famous line that people say in clothing stores is, we think it's just real estate. It's everywhere, but I'm just looking. Where do you go with that?
Awesome. What has you looking? Immediately. I'm just curious. Okay, what has you curious? I'm just browsing. Excellent. What are you browsing for? Whatever their word is, I use that because honestly, y'all, that's green flag go. They didn't say I'm not looking. They said I am looking. So stop thinking of that as a bad sign. You're just looking for people that are just looking. You're browsing for people that are browsing. So the more that you start to hear things rather than as an objection, but as a path forward, your whole conversation will change.
Love that.
That's fantastic.
Love that.
And I like the order of operations, right? Because if you know what you're going to say the moment that you get on the phone, you should have some objection handlers already ready. And then, like you said, ask the softball questions just to kind of get that sales guard down, get them opening up on what their actual motivation is looking to do. And then you could have those conversations on why they're going X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you've helped a lot of agents convert, right? Where do you see the biggest aha come from agents when they're struggling to get these calls into good conversations, into conversions, right? To when they start to get it. Where's the biggest switch?
They realize they have to talk to their lead more than what they are now, because I can give them the good lines. And sometimes agents are like, Nikki, I crushed that call. And it's like, what did we do with the rest of the calls or the rest of the day? And so there's a certain stamina that has to be built up. The agents who go from just applying to, Nikki, I'll do it again and I'll do it again and I'll do it again. That's where they have the light bulb moment of, oh, this is why people end up with more closings, because they don't stop after one call. They don't put all of their eggs in one basket on this shiny object that looks pretty. What if that one doesn't close? And the moment that everyone realizes, regardless of how promising it looks, is not the best indicator, the only things that will ever close are the things that close. That means that I have to continue always. I can't drop my best habits. That little switch of I'll go ahead and follow up more is where agents start to close more deals. Very elementary, but that's the way.
Yeah.
And you mentioned right in the beginning too, with it's a long game, 26 touch attempts in order to get that conversion, right? So when you have an agent, they call once, they don't answer, and they say, "Oh, these leads suck." There's a cadence to that, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you go by the call twice the first time they come in, then text, email every day for the first 5 days?
I don't want to get in trouble. If Travis is on the call, Travis would be like, you better answer with the money time pawn rules. So is there different systems? There's different systems, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I have seen work just in lead generation. When I first get a lead, I call, text, email the lead, and I do that for 5 days in a row. So that's what I do when I first receive a lead. After that, it still needs 5 more days of touches. Now, I typically would switch those. Sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a call, sometimes it's a text. That's fine. But what I realized is that the area where I wasn't staying on track, those 5 days after, that's where I was getting mixed results. I was having more consistent results when I was doing the 5 days. Now, 10 touches is better than no touches, right? 10 days of follow-up is excellent. But after that, I created a call, text, email for every single day, which took the reinventing away from it. So I would say your 10 days of pain is still classic, and that still works.
Beautiful.
Is there a magic time
Yes. The magic time is any hour that you're willing to be on the phone. But separate from that, your next magic hours really is between 4 and 6 p.m., which most people refuse to work. And because I know that 4 to 6 p.m. for most people is when they don't want to work, that means that you should be calling the rest of the day. Because if you're not willing to commit to the 2-hour block that is shown to be the best, then 2 hours at any time is better than not doing it at all.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I mean, one, implementing the money plan system, where you have multiple agents taking shifts and calling, it's just like you get that luck of them picking up. I mean, I had a lead that came through that I called her 3 days straight.
Mhm.
And on the third day, I got lucky. She answered the phone because she was waiting for somebody to be picked up from the hospital. She was picking them up and turned that into an appointment. And the only reason she answered is because that was just luck of like just 9:45 on a lucky time. You know what I mean? Just luck,
Yeah.
straight up luck. So that's, I think, another reason. I mean, because you said it right. It's consistency in the calling is that was way more important.
Mhm.
Um, the 4 to 6 is interesting too. So, um, okay, where where does automation fit in, and where does it not?
Automation fits in to the lead generation side. But after you have had a meaningful connection, I would tell you automation is over. Too many agents are looking for the easy button to say, okay, well, can't this automation close my lead for me? It can't. It can't do any of that. After that point, thank goodness automation was there to assist in whatever way it did. But after that, automation should be out. And that's not what most CEOs or agents want to hear.
That's what I want. I've learned the hard way on that. I was one of the ones that tried to set up all the easy buttons in the world, and then what happens is we went very, very heavy on that, and you become too reliant on it. I mean, of course, laziness happens, but aside from even laziness, is there's things that are going out that you don't realize. There's things that break that you don't realize. Um, it's just a mess. So
Mhm.
I've stripped it back down to the bare bones personally because, well, and I think that in the age of AI and all of these automations, I think manual work stands out more than it did before.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you experiencing that?
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, right now, all of us are getting text messages that we didn't ask for, right? That we know good and well are a part of like insurance or a place that we shopped at once or recommended coupons that are coming up, etc. And so we read and we immediately say that doesn't look human. And so most of us, what? We never text back or we immediately unsubscribe. So the more personal that it touches, the better it will be. But it's very difficult to convince, and this is where I side with agents. It's very difficult to convince anyone to give so many personalized touches when you don't have a personal relationship. That's where some agents end up getting in the weeds. And so I would say, okay, let the automation do what it will do. Because if I have 10 leads, I have to treat them all like gold. But if I have thousands of leads, then it is who's going to fall through the filters. The moment I get them, I am treating them with a white glove service, right?
Mm.
But to start with, I can't afford to look in their search and find something personalized. I'm only going to talk to 10 people in a day if I'm trying to get a personal relationship with people that have no connection to me.
Love that. Yeah, we've very much made a point to once they've had the conversation with us to think quality over quantity, and when we're prospecting, think quantity over quality. Just flip that
Yes.
mindset,
Yeah.
which is perfect actually. Because I wanted to ask you because I had heard somewhere, I don't know, something of yours that I saw about after you make the connection, you follow up with them every 3 days after you've made the connection. Tell me about like the mentality there, the strategy, and then is there any way to set up um, something? And I'm curious personally, is there something in Follow Up Boss where once the leads status changes, then there's a new smart list for like, like a recent, because I don't think we have a smart list that's, oh, they just changed stage. Now they need every day for the next 3 days, relative to that process. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I'm going to answer both of those things, but
It's a lot.
let me start with the first
It
one.
was a lot.
So ultimately, whenever we get a lead that we have secured, which for me means a minimum of a 2-minute conversation, once we've talked with them a minimum of 2 minutes, and I move that lead from a pond into my name, and now I am working that lead by myself, I need to talk to that lead for 3 days in a row. That's the rule. 3 days in a row. And here is why. Over and over again, that lead that says, I am 6 months out, I am 1 year out, yet we still choose to put in our pipeline because we hear they have real estate needs. If I stay in touch with that lead, that can be the sense of urgency that the lead needs, where I'm doing showings in the same week and we're writing contracts within the same week or month, simply because I helped keep that excitement going. That's very similar to what happens when we build a new friendship. It maybe comes in pieces, but the more often that you are with somebody, the more that you care about them. Travis compares it to dating. If you start to be interested in someone, the more that it builds up, the more exciting it becomes. It's the same thing. But agents too many times say, that was a great conversation, and since that was great, I'm going to talk with them again next month. Well, if you were dating, that would mean that you weren't interested, right? So I would really say that 3 days is crucial before you stage them to any other way. As for your systems and automations, Travis is your CRM guru and expert, right? And I know that there is a way on your smart list to filter according to last communication. And so to build your smart lists in order to how often those leads are being communicated with. And so even we have in the past done according to stage to say, okay, well, if it's in a blazing hot or a nurture stage, we'll get notifications every so often. I've just seen sometimes that when it's a notification or a task, that's what agents tend to ignore, because that doesn't show up anywhere else unless you're on that profile on that day. So I hope that Travis is not disappointed listening to me say this. Be the expert. I go to him for all things CRM.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, well, and I that was a gap for me. Something I wasn't doing enough was the 3 days, and I forget where I heard you do it, but I immediately implemented it with the conversation that I had, and it created a showing. Yeah.
Yes.
Just because I followed up the next day, like so I had handpicked the properties, followed up the next day on those properties, scheduled a showing, followed up on the showing, and added 2 more to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
great stuff.
Well, I think it's like, believe what people do, not what they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be a smoke screen or just, you know, a subtle objection is saying like, I'm 6 months out. So then that way they don't think that you're going to be like bothering them, so to speak, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
more value that you could show, the more that you show that you have their best interest in hand, then I think that guard comes down, and you know they're more open to kind of speeding up that time frame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I like what you said about dating too, and just that building up of excitement, because I mean that's part of it. Like these people, like they want to make a move. They're looking. They're just at that curiosity stage. But a lot of the times they think that path is more uphill than it maybe is. And when you just show them that the lane is open, more will take it than you expect, in my experience, and I'm sure it's the same. And that's what that is. You're giving a space for them to show that, hey, we can instead of pushing this ball uphill, we can push it downhill. I'm here to do that. But yeah, it takes that 3 days, and that was huge. I mean, those are really really huge. So coming back into the conversation, um, okay, criteria. We've got some motivation. Maybe you're in a timeline. When is a space to ask someone for an appointment to meet in person or to go see a house or to, when is an indicator for you to know that it's a good space to go for an appointment?
Yep. So I heard a statistic with one of the higher ups in Wailopo. And he said that, there was this one particular team that was saying they weren't getting enough appointments from the leads. And so they did a little research and they found out of every 10 that 4 of them were asking. Out of the 4 that were asking, 2 were getting yeses. And agents have every reason in the book for why they didn't ask on all 10. They say, my gut. They say the timeline. They say the way that the person spoke on the other side. You name the reasons. We all have excuses. And that is what they found that they are. So they said, okay, how about out of 10, what if we get to 10? How many appointments would we get then? Is the agent's gut right, or what does it look like? They never got to 10. They got to 8. But the ratio didn't change. They got 4 yeses out of every 8 that they asked. So what I would tell you is, regardless of what anybody tells you at the end of the call, it cannot possibly hurt you to ask. This is all the parenting things that I've ever worked in my favor, right? To tell you that the worst somebody can do is say no. But if they say yes, How many of us have gotten in front of someone and realized on the phone you didn't seem that serious, but you're sure motivated now that I'm with you, or you actually have the funds to do so, etc. And the opposite too. It was a really good call and you're with them, and this looks like it's not going to play out. The best agents I talk to, they all say the same thing, and they don't even realize they say it. They say, I would give anybody 30 minutes of my time. So I would tell you the best time to ask for the appointment is after you have collected all of your information. The worst that's going to happen is you're not going to get it this time, but your only chance at converting a lead is if you ever are in the position to go to the next step. If you don't ask for the next step, it 100% is a no.
Love it. So your next step, we've been using one that's been pretty good. I'll get your feedback on it. Is, hey, Nikki, do you know what the next step is in buying or selling your home? And then go from there. Yes or no, right? Great. That's exactly why I think we should meet for 10 to 15 minutes. But before you set the appointment, do you kind of preface it with your value prop of why they should meet with you? Or do you kind of just see the natural dialogue of the conversation and then, talk next steps right after the fact?
First of all, I just want to highlight what Jason just said, because that one little question of, do you know what the next steps are? Make it so that the person is accepting internally they don't have the next steps. You're presenting the opportunity to say, do you want to take this information? And so they're more ready for a solution. That's a little subconscious trick. I love that you're doing that. This is what my typical appointment ask would sound like. I would say, okay, Jason, is there anything else we haven't covered today that we should have? And that also lets me know. That lets me know I'm about to go into an appointment ask. And Jason said nothing, so I'm in the clear. And then after I say that, I say, perfect. Well, I tell you what, whenever we do start to see homes that are worth taking a look at, are typically weekdays or weekends going to be better? And he answers,
weekends.
Weekends, perfect. And I say, are mornings or evenings typically better?
Mornings.
Perfect. So now we have weekends and we have mornings. That tells me his availability, even though I didn't outright ask for the appointment. So now when I go to set, I'm not shooting in the dark. I'm preparing myself for what my ask is. And I say, great, Jason, the natural next step would be for us to meet in person. And before you know it, you repeat what's valuable to them. That's the power of the motivation. And after I repeat that little piece that's important to them, that also does something for them inside, because now they're realizing to disagree would be to disagree with what they said was valuable. So by repeating that little motivation right there, before you know it, Jason, you will XYZ. This will take place. You'll have your kids in the school district you want them to. You'll be at a shorter commute time, which allows you to have more time at home. You name it. I'd like for us to meet over a cup of coffee. I'll have your order picked out ahead of time. How would this Saturday at 2 p.m. work for you? And before you know it, the next XYZ will take place. We'll have the steps so that I know and you know what it looks like for us to move forward, etc. But that ask doesn't come until I do a couple of pre-frame steps first.
So good. Love that.
So what drives you to work on helping agents convert and like, what's your biggest motivator?
This is my truest answer, y'all. Nobody really asked this, so I have no answer prepared yet.
Good, it's real.
The truth is that whenever I started this, I was really afraid that it wouldn't impact people. I thought, what happens if I go giving my heart out, but it doesn't change anybody's life, because it's not something that's like directly tied to a do good activity, which made me fearful. I thought sales has to be icky. And then I realized that, and I only realized with time, there were enough instances where, because an agent closed something, they were able to do something in their lives they wanted to, or people who would have been, and let's be honest, it's still that largest transaction in most people's lives. People who were with a bad agent ended up closing with one of mine, and they're so happy and they're so grateful. And we are talking for most people about homes or investments. And so long as the agent is honest, it's better for them to be working with an agent like you And it's better for me to be investing because I may not be able to change the overall value, but I do change the circumstances of people's lives by being able to do this. And so now I'm at a point where I've almost made my peace to say, it's not up to me about how any of the agents will spend any of their money, but certainly the value of time, the quality they'll be able to do without pressure of paying bills or without, that fear of where is my next blank coming. That part is the value that I'm providing to people. And now I really have found that as my function in people's lives.
Yeah.
When it's so huge because there's two sides of the agents you're talking about too, where one, there's really good agents that have been in the business for a while, but maybe don't really know how to prospect, or, get others outside of their sphere of influence, and they're great agents. They just don't know how to enter the space of what you're teaching. What to say, how to say it, all those things. And on the other side of it, there's newer agents that get in and, maybe they have great training and everything provided and a good proven process to deliver, a smooth sale, but they don't do the thing because of the fear, right? And you're eliminating that by giving them, um, you know, talking them through what to say, how to say it, what, all those things. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. So impacting lives is what you would say is what gets you through it.
Yeah, because now, especially working with different teams, every agent is not equally invested. That's what I found. Some of them are turned off because they say, I know everything I need to know. And some of them are just turned off because they're not in a position where they're open to doing something different. And so I always tell myself, if one person in the room, just one, really, really changed what they were doing on the phone, in their follow-up, in their call, resulted in one more closing that made things easier, then my time would have been worth it. And so I really try talking to whoever in the room is focused. If that person is with me, that's all that I need. That is all that I need to keep going. And that has worked for me too, because sometimes I can see in a room that people are checked out, but I am the active listener. And so if I see that person disconnect or stop giving their best, then I feel that I've been let down. I don't want anyone else to ever feel that way. I want to make sure that that one person, it's worth pouring into, because I had a Gene Smith who did that with me, right? So that's how I feel.
And I think, I can speak for a lot of teams. You come in and you train my team, 10 times a month, and the impact that you've made on us in such a short time has definitely paid off. And I know I speak for the team that we're super grateful to have you there, teaching everybody, because like I said, you are changing lives and it is making a difference. And then I go in and help coach on what you help us, what you went through today. And like I said, it's working. They're getting the appointment set. They're getting the appointment met. They're getting the under contract, and they could see it as a career. So yeah, super thankful to have you on the team. And like you said, all these skills that you talked about could be learned. Like you said, you didn't come naturally as a salesperson. So I think that gives everybody motivation. Like, you have people coming into real estate from other industries where maybe they weren't comfortable in that career and they're looking for a shift and they're not sure if they could do it because they never had sales skills or whatever. And it's like, you learned it, right? Just getting out there, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, and just learning and not being afraid to be on the phone. I think it's so valuable.
Mm-hmm. There is something that has been happening recently, specifically with women that I coach one-on-one, is that sometimes the women will say, I want to be like you. I want to do the XYZ. I want to sound like you. And I tell them, the thing is that I didn't sound like me when I started. I was just willing to be bad. And I also was not afraid of learning. I was afraid of what happened if I didn't get good at it. And so for too many of us, we're not willing to make the change because the pain is not bad enough. It's like, maybe you don't have as much money as you wanted, but you're kind of coasting. And so until you decide that what you have is unbearable, that's where most of us make a real change. And for me, there was no going back. There was no other option for me that was paying well. I was a waitress before I was ever in real estate. And when I was filling up salt and pepper shakers, I was like, is this my full potential? Was this what I was intended to do? Am I going to work with my back for the rest of my life? And the answer to that was no. I mean, I was college educated. I had graduated very young from college. I had 3 college degrees. And so I felt like somewhere along the way, I didn't give myself a fair shake. This is such a fair shake. The real estate world and opportunity, there is no climbing a ladder. It is just what you make of it. So the opportunity for you to embrace your fullest self is so much more available in this path than in most paths.
Yeah, so
100%.
like I said, you don't have to be Nikki. You could be yourself, and you're going to have that natural rapport in the relationship and build, the relationship with clients just by being you. You don't have to be anybody else. There's already, except for me, I have a twin, but there's only one of you, right?
So, I love that about filling up the salt and pepper shakers. Just that whole. I mean, yeah, I've yeah, I think I was in a space where I had I don't even know what I don't have. I can't even think of the exact moment like you do there. But yeah, you have that space of it's like, is this all? Is this all it is? Is this all I got? And this is one of the best vessels where you can start to realize that. So I totally agree with you. Moving forward, what's got you excited? Like, what are you excited for in the future?
Except helping our teams grow.
Yeah, truly. Man, Chad, this one I could have used ahead of time.
I know. I feel bad now.
No, truly the things that I am actually looking forward to this year are the conferences that I will be speaking at, which may seem simple, but for me, these are the accomplishments that I was looking forward to. When I started in inside sales, I remember my CEO at that place at that time was like, "Hey, one day you could be on stages." And I thought that with that CEO, it was going to happen. And then with somebody else, a couple of years later, I thought maybe there it would happen. And now I'm in a place where the fact is I've never asked to be in a conference. And I have, Preston Guyton, who has drastically changed my entire life and said, what you're doing is valuable and more people should hear it. So for me right now, those conferences are like an alignment with what I was working towards. And that means a lot to me. For me right now, that is the step that I was hoping to get to.
Heck yeah.
Where are you speaking at? Where do we got to see you? Because I've seen you on stage a couple times, and yeah, you crush it for sure.
Thank you. They are currently changing schedules on ones that we are speaking at, but once I know, I will be telling you the lineup soon to come.
Awesome. Great stuff.
I like it.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. I think that was the real stuff. That was really, really good. So, yeah, if anybody wants to reach out for any help with anything, should they just find you on social media, or where should they contact you at?
Yes, my name is Nikki Pais. As y'all know, I am your conversion coach, but you can find me as Nikki the Writer under Instagram or Facebook.
Easy enough. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. You're a blessing to us, and I'm super stoked that we had you on here today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. See you tomorrow on our call.
See you there.